All right, you're running a Windows machine and you want to get started with, well, Cisco DevNet. Well, you need to set up a dev environment. Let's show you how to do that right here on IT Pro TV.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
All right, welcome. That's right. We are starting to set up our dev tools in a Windows environment. And here to help us on his favorite operating system is Mr. Justin Denson. Justin, welcome to the show and your Windows operating system.
Thanks for having me, Ron. You kind of oversold it on my favorite. You kind of oversold it on my favorite.
I did. I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
All right, Justin. So the very fact is, engineers like myself that have been using Windows environments forever, we may find it a little bit more intimidating to just say, hey, let's just bring up a Linux machine and get started in a dev environment. But there is an opportunity because the tools that we might use there, we can actually get them installed in Windows, right?
So I'll tell you, Ronnie, I actually always try to pick tools that I can use cross-platform. Though we had a nice little chuckle back a few years ago, Windows wasn't as friendly when it came to development. And this came from me trying to use it, me trying to help other people who were trying to use Windows. So just some of the tooling I was like, it kind of works, but then there's like weird glitches. I'm not saying that never occurs. It has gotten substantially better though. And that has to do with some shifts in Microsoft kind of pushing toward, let's be more friendly, more ubiquitous for those developers. So I do have an intention of bringing up a Windows machine in the future and running it as my daily driver. But I'm running it in VM right now. All the tools that, if you watch the Linux one, are going to be exactly the same. We're going to install Python. Windows doesn't come with Python installed by default, so we have to install it. There's a couple of different ways to do that. I'm going to show you the easiest way. We're going to install Git. And Git actually provides us with similar things to that Linux command line that we saw as far as the Git for Windows. We're going to install Postman. Postman, probably easier. And then we're going to install Visual Studio Code, which is more or less just the same. Now, we're going to try to make this as expeditious as possible because I know you're like, all right, you click at a thing and you click at a thing. But verifying that these have been installed and they are working is paramount because you don't want to go, everything's good. You got to run your first script or write your first one and things go horribly awry. So we're going to step at a time, make sure everything's good.
All right, Justin. So where are we going to get started here? Because it sounds like just a whole list of things. Is there any importance in the order?
So that's one of the things where I haven't tried every possible order that there is, but we're going to go this order because I want to make sure that Git for Windows is aware of any other command line utilities that have occurred. We're going to start with Python. We're then going to go to Postman, Visual Studio Code, and then Git for Windows at the end because it installs additional tools other than just the Git toolchain you can use Python there and those kind of interchange. So I'm going to do that last just to make sure any awareness that needs to be there is there. When in doubt, if you have some weirdness, do a single reboot cycle because sometimes these install on Windows particularly, everything needs to reboot and kind of, oh, okay, I'm aware of all of these other goings-ons. All right, now with that said, no better time than the present to go ahead and get started. So if we come to my screen here, the first thing we're going to do is download and install Python. I've actually already downloaded all these just to remove any, us looking awkwardly at each other while downloads occur. But when you come to python.org, this is the Python Software Foundation. This is the main maintainer of the reference implementation of Python. If you come and hover over this downloads, you can pick to your heart's content anything you want. Windows, Mac OS, other platforms. You can get alternative implementations other than the default one. But all we're going to do is run Python 3.8.1. And note that Python 3.5 Plus cannot be used on a Windows XP. I hope you're not using Windows XP. I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to click this download. It's going to download an installer. We're good to go. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to hop over into our downloads, and we're going to have a Python-3.8.1 or 3.8.1. And I'm just going to double click it. All right. This is going to open this little install window, and notice this says 32-bit. Wait a minute. I'm pretty sure I installed, we're going to leave it be, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think this is still the default install regardless. if we pull out just a little bit and we double check, because this may be, maybe I selected the wrong Windows install. See, that's what happens when you're out of there. I need to go to About My Computer and About Your PC, and yeah, 64-bit. So the default install is going to default to a 32-bit install of Python. That's perfectly fine. It will serve our purposes. Do keep in mind you may have to do updates in the future if that so changes. But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing a 32-bit Windows, because the other installs could go horribly awry. So I'm going to double click that again, and I'm just going to leave it in its default location. But I am going to stop that because cancel. There's one little thing that I want to make sure that you do, that I do, and
That check mark
right here. Add Python 3.82 path. You can actually do this later, but it's a giant pain. So make sure you click that, and I am going to install the launcher for everybody. That's going to make sure I have any point and click installs. And now I'm going to click install. You can install this in a different location, but I'm just going to hit yes, and boom, we're good. It's going to move forward. Beautiful. All right.
So, Justin, go ahead and explain why we wanted to add that to the path, because most of us might say, okay, what's the big deal? It's just a check mark.
It does sound that
It
simple,
does,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if you don't add it to the path, anytime that you go to do what I do in any other show, type Python and some script, that doesn't work because I don't have that executable on my path to be able to be looked up. I could add it, but it's just easier to click that check mark and let the installer add it to the path. Now, if you can use the Windows Store, if I'm not mistaken, to install Python. And I think by default that installs it with the path option.
No, that I don't.
I haven't played around with that a great deal, so your mileage may vary.
Right.
All right. But I know Microsoft has invested a lot from their side to help with this installation process for the Python Software Foundation. Believe it or not, Python's done. That's it. How do I verify that it worked? We're going to come down here to my little Windows icon. I'm just going to type Python. And as soon as I see these, Python, idle, looks good. There's Python 3 for Metro Python programs. I'm just going to click this. This is going to open up what's called the REPL. That means that Python has been installed. That's usually not where we're going to go, and we're not going to use that idle part. That's a text editor that comes with Python that's very, very simple and is great if you're just getting started, but we're going to use Visual Studio Code because we're also doing other things other than Python. So Python's good. Now, let's go to Postman. Now, I double click the install, I got a little ahead of myself there. We're going to go to getpostman.com. I like how it comes up. It's like, nah, you look here. We're going to download the app. That's all I'm doing. When I click download the app, that little download, I have to pick 64-bit or 32-bit. All right. So this installing Postman has its custom splash screen. It opened up, and it's done? Okay, well, I didn't have to say yes, no. Postman is one of those weird apps. It used to be a Chrome extension, and then it became its own application, and I do some weird things. Let's see if I can find Postman. There we go. So it's utilizing probably some of the Windows Store's progressive web app fun times to do this. Once that screen goes away, we're done. I can open Postman just by clicking that, make sure that it opens. There it is. That was way easier than what happened in Linux land if you watch those episodes.
Now, Justin, normally the first time we install Postman, it tries to almost trick you into asking for an account, but there's a way around that, right?
Yeah, there's tiny little text in a weird color at the very bottom. It says skip.
Yeah, it almost blends in. So you have to look for it really, I mean, it's right in the center when you actually first launch it the first time, and it means you don't have to create an account. You can if you want to, but you don't have to.
So I'll put it this way. Postman has some great collaboration features. Let's say Ronnie and I were on an actual team and we're doing some network infrastructure, we're doing some testing, we're setting up these automation infrastructure. I would probably go ahead and create an account because then we could share all these automated tests, all these requests that we made between each other. But for just testing independently, nah. Nope, I don't need an account, and that's just my personal preference. You can do whatever you want to. But there is a skip down at the very bottom, all right? That was a way easier install than on Linux, Now, what's next? Visual Studio Code. Let's go ahead and take a look at the screen here. And I'm going to hop over to code.visualstudio.com. It's going to say, do you want to download for Windows? I absolutely do. And if I do that, it downloads for Windows. Boom. Here's my little setup. I'm going to double click. And it goes, yeah, I accept the agreement. You should read these. And looks good. I'm going to leave the default install location. I'm going to leave the default name. And I don't want a desktop icon, but I do want an open with code and an open with code. I just like those because then you can right click and say open with code, and that way you can use any of your GUI interactions that you're used to. Register code as an editor for supported file types. That's completely up to you. If it was me, I would do that. That way it would recognize, oh, this is a .py file. That's Visual Studio Code. So double click. So I'm going to do that. And then add to path. This is handy for some shortcut stuff that is an advanced feature, but I go ahead and add it to the path now because it's just easier. And then I'm going to install, and it's going to install Visual Studio Code. This is a Microsoft product. It comes fairly bare to begin with, but then you can bolt on upgrades, so to speak, right? If you're into cars, you can add nitrous and blowers and turbochargers. It's all great. Launch Visual Studio Code. That's a metaphor, by the way. And there we go. It's up and running. Everything looks good. And nothing crashed. You will get some like telemetry information and some little pop-ups from time to time. You can always dismiss those. There we go. We have 3 of our 4 core requirements. Now Git. Git was built to manage the Linux code base. As a result, it has a strong bent toward Linux-like systems. But there is a project called Git for Windows, and it's at gitforwindows.org. You can actually go to another website and get a similar package, so just be aware of that. There's a couple of different ways to install, but I like this one because it's very upfront. It's Git Source Control Manager for Windows. Just going to click that download button. It downloads my installer, and we're going to go ahead and double click that. Okay, Git for Windows, yes. Looks good, GPL. And then here, there's a bunch of options here. I'm going to have a recommendation. I'm going to leave this checked. I'm going to leave this checked. Absolutely to be run with Bash. When you install this, you get, I think it's MIGGW or Migwin. I call it Migwin. Mingwin. It is an emulator for Bash. It's essentially Bash on top of Windows. If you've been staying in Windows world, there is another way to do this. It's called the Windows subsystem for Linux. That is an alternative to this, but if you're not opted into those, this is kind of default. I am going to check for daily updates because every once in a while there is like a security shenanigans that happens with Git. Just allowing you to look into places that you're not supposed to. I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to make it create a start menu folder. And choose the default editor to be used by Git. This is if you type a command wrong, what editor is it going to open? For ease of use, see this Visual Studio Code as Git's default editor? I would click that. If you're okay with Vim, leave it there. But you'll end up in Vim. And if you don't know how to get out of there, a lot of people just panic and close out of it. And then adjusting your path environment. Use Git from Git Bash only, Git from command line, and also from third-party software. Use Git and optional Unix tools from command prompt. I'm going to stay with this recommended one. There are times where you would want to pick one of these other ones. I wouldn't mess with this. Use OpenSSL. Yep. I didn't realize I had to give you like a background on like all these differences. So check out Windows style commit Unix style line endings. So there's a hidden character, either was it line feed or what is the CR? Control return, I think,
right,
for line feeds. Depending on whether you're on Windows or Linux style systems, you get a different character or set of characters that represent that. If you check out Windows style and commit Unix style, sometimes you'll get like a little warning when you do a first commit and it'll say, hey, I'm converting all these. That's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. You'll see it one time. Check out as is and commit Unix style. Check out as is and commit as is. I would be careful here. I like these Unix style line endings. They're kind of move across platforms a little easier in my experience. So I'm going to stay with this top one. But do be aware, things can get a little squirrely. I'm going to use this Git Bash terminal emulator, min_tty. You can technically use the Windows command prompt, but I'm going to stay away from that. And then file system caching, Git credentialing. This will save your credentials once you type them in for GitHub or any type of external repository. You're more than welcome to leave that clicked. I'm going to leave it clicked here, but if you want to not save your password, unclick this now. Okay? And then I'm going to leave that empty as well. Install. That's the worst part about the Git install, is all the options that you have to make.
All right, Justin, you're right. There's a ton of options there. But what if we went ahead and just clicked on it and got started and then realized we need to change something?
So I would rerun the installer.
Okay.
A lot of times it'll go, hey, can you want to update these? If worse comes to worse, uninstall and reinstall. There are ways to modify those options. The installer or uninstalling and reinstalling is what I found to be the most approachable. So that would be my recommendation. A lot of options, but that is what happens when you have tools that are built for one system and you need to make them work on another one just for people to be able to use them. So with that said, it looks like our Git install is finished. So if we come back to my screen here, it says, do you want to view release notes? No, I don't want to read those. But I want to launch Git Bash. And that'll make sure that everything's set up. So I'm going to install, and there's Git Bash. And what happens is you essentially get like a mini little Linux environment. By installing it in this order, we should see a couple of things. And, oh, right, it zooms in. Sometimes that doesn't work. So I'm going to type python -- version, and notice it reports that. Python was there, Git Bash is aware. I have seen where if you do the reverse order, it's not aware, things go awry. And then if I type git -- version, boom, there we go. Our two tools are ready to go. And if you ever need to get to this Git Bash, come to your little start menu and just start typing and say git. And there's two options, Git Bash and Git GUI. And then there's also a third option called Git CMD. It's deprecated. It was not friendly. So I never used it. Just click on Git Bash. It'll bring you to this terminal. Your Git tools are good to go. They are also integrated in Visual Studio Code, so you can use the GUI part from there. I know that was maybe not, it's kind of a weird tour through Windows, and this story has gotten a lot better than it used to be. There's our core development environment. We got Postman for making HTTP requests. We got Git for version control. We got Python for running our scripts, maybe even automating things on our Windows machine. And we have Visual Studio Code, so we're not just staring at Notepad going, where is that error again? We get syntax highlighting and a little more help. We should be ready to go from here on out.
All right, Justin. Well, thank you again for reminding us of this particular issue here that we have to have when we are running Windows. There's a lot of different options for us to choose from, so make sure you do, check the ones that you need to as well. But with all those tools installed, that means we are ready to go, except that, Justin, do we actually need to add in anything else now that I think about it?
Well, this is our core tool set. There are times where we have complicated infrastructures that we need to simulate on our machine. This doesn't cover that case.
Right.
Having some way to run VMs or run containers would be fantastic, but maybe we hold off, come back for another episode, show you how to install those, get those up and running, we should be good.
All right, Justin. Well, thank you again. Like I said, even though I started to try and end the episode, we actually need to add in a little bit more here. So this is actually the final time here. So signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm your host, Ronnie Wong.
And I'm Justin Dennison.
Stay tuned right here for more of your Cisco Certified DevNet Associate Show.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.